Welcome everybody to Startup Canada Live, Startup Foundations. Today is Thursday, May 18th. My name is Paul Stevenson, and I am a proud entrepreneur. I'm the co-founder of referralmortgages.com in our nation's capital, Ottawa. And I work with Startup Canada because I think they're an amazing, necessary organization across our country right now. Entrepreneurship is becoming more and more prominent, and having a resource like Startup Canada is unprecedented and definitely needed. And for anyone who doesn't know, Startup Canada is a national rallying community and voice for Canada's entrepreneurship community.
Awesome. My name is TUAN. I'm here in Ottawa and really happy to be here with you guys. Welcome everyone to the show. I'm involved with Startup Canada for the same reasons Paul, and personally as well, I've had several startup companies. Had some pretty good successes, but about 8 or 9 failures. And just through the process, I've always wished I had someone or a group like Startup Canada to help me through some of my tough times in the past. And so glad you guys are here. So we are your hosts for today's show. Very excited. We're live here in Ottawa. We're not in the national office in Ottawa, but we're here in Ottawa. And you guys are probably sitting in cubicles, co-working space, incubators, and so on and so forth. So excited. Welcome everyone.
Yeah, so to give you guys an idea, every Thursday on Startup Canada Live, we discuss topics relevant to Canada's startup, scale-up, and small business communities. We feature expert guests like we have today, and they provide insights into funding, growing, and scaling successful ventures. Startup Canada is streamed. Startup Live is streamed through Periscope, Facebook, YouTube. So anywhere you want to watch it, you can do that. And that's via our good friends at restream.io. And Startup Canada Live is brought to you by Intuit QuickBooks. So they're Canada's leading provider of business, financial, and tax management solutions. So topical for today. And by MasterCard. So whether you need a card for purchases or you need payment solutions to help you better manage and track expenses, MasterCard has the right solution for your small business. So thanks to our sponsors today.
Yes, and so today's Startup Live topic is a pretty cool one. It's personal and business expenses for beginners. We are joined today by two really awesome, very special guests. And our first actually is joining us from nearby here in Ottawa. And it's our lovely ELAINE Orr. How are you, ELAINE?
I'm good, thank you. Very good.
Great. Now, ELAINE is the CEO of BALANCESHEETS.ca. With over 30 years of accounting experience, ELAINE has worked for a variety of private, public, not-for-profit organizations. And ELAINE has also joined us in the past as a guest here on Startup Chats, which occurs every Wednesday and Friday on Twitter. And so welcome. Thank you for joining us here, ELAINE.
Welcome.
And joining from Peterborough, I believe, Mr. Bob GAUVREAU. How are you, sir?
I'm wonderful. How you doing?
Awesome. Let me tell the audience a bit about you here. So Bob here is the president and CEO of GAUVREAU and Associates Chartered Professional Accountants, a company that specializes in providing proactive accounting, advisory, and tax service to its clients. He's also one of the founding members of Startup Peterborough, Wicked, which is a regionally focused division of Startup Canada. Welcome to you both.
Thank you so much.
Yeah,
So before we get into our main topic of balancing personal and business expenses for beginners, we're going to have a bit of an icebreaker round, and that includes Tuan and I as hosts. So I'll ask both you guys first. What is the most interesting thing you've done in the past 48 hours? And it can't be work-related.
Okay, I'll start. I sang in a ladies' barbershop performance on Saturday night.
Say that again? A women's barbershop performance?
Yep. I sang in a ladies' barbershop group, and we had a performance on Saturday night.
Is that an invite to sing a song for us right now?
It is not, because I don't have a tenor and a baritone and a bass with me, so yeah.
Oh, I'm a tenor.
Yeah.
If Bob can do the bass, we're set here.
I could give it a shot. I don't know. No guarantees.
And what about yourself, Bob?
Probably the most interesting thing is we drove 6 hours, my family and I, on Sunday to Niagara Falls from Peterborough to watch my daughter dance for 3 minutes and then drive home. So that was what a wonderful commitment we have to our family life.
Absolutely. What about yourself, Juan?
Well, yesterday was Mother's Day, right? And so we did a nice breakfast, but then Mom and the daughters kind of stepped out, so it was just me and the little man at home. It was kind of raining at the time, and the little guy said, I want to play with this new water gun. And so we just went out and filled up our water guns and watered the plants and shot little buildings in the rain. It was a lot of fun.
So you mean 4 days ago on Mother's Day, right? Because it's
4
been a
days
few
ago,
days
yeah.
now.
Oh yeah, my bad.
For myself, actually going back to the weekend as well. Not overly interesting, but it was traumatic. I had Saturday. I was with a friend. We had a barbecue and ended up cutting my toe pretty badly. So I've been dealing with that. I have an upcoming race, actually a 5K race coming up on race weekend, and I'm unable to train for a few days. So I'm dealing with that right now, mentally and physically. But yeah, that's probably the most interesting thing if I'm thinking off the top of my head here. So, so let's get into it. Elaine, I have a question. We'll start with a question for yourself. So you, as we heard, you have such an extensive history in accounting. You could probably run the entire show by yourself. But what first got you into accounting, and what are your current responsibilities as CEO of BalanceSheets.ca?
Well, I started in accounting straight out of high school. I did sort of an apprenticeship in accounting with the National Electricity Company in Scotland, like your hydro boards here. And I got a good grounding in all the different departments of accounting. They moved us around and sent us to school at the same time. So I've been in accounting like right since then. I think I always knew I was going to go into something like that, because when I was little, all my toys were cash registers or plain post office or libraries and stamping and filing and balancing and order and things. So yeah, so I have worked in a variety of different positions, and through private accounting and public accounting, but now with BalanceSheets.ca, I've been running my own company for 11 years now, and I love being the main accounting go-to throughout the year for all the small business owners that we go to. I have 2 part-time staff, and we help business owners get set up with a proper accounting system. We train them in how to use it. We train them how to record their expenses, and we train them in not what to touch. That's the most important part, is training them what not to touch. So,
Yeah, I often wonder that too, because you figure that probably 70% of business is done during tax season, right? And when you're dealing with self-employed individuals, it kind of extends out your business for the whole year, because it's more based on year end and things like that. So do you find this actually helps you, I guess, stay sharper throughout the year, because you don't have that kind of 4 month, dramatic situation at the beginning of every year? This is a question, I guess, for both of you, but.
for myself, I gave up doing taxes. I don't do income taxes. I don't have that 4 month blob, that just like sends you into panic and you don't sleep and you're awake all hours and everything. I don't think I can specialize in tax, and I wouldn't know enough about tax strategy. So I send them to a CPA that I partner with, but really I'm throughout the year, we're doing monthly financial reports, HST returns, like we're on top of their bookkeeping throughout the year. So when it does come to the year end, it's just all we've got to do is reconcile the last month and send it to someone like Bob.
The importance of a bookkeeper.
Yep.
Did you want me to jump in there too? So for us, we do, and the tax season is so condensed right now. It's still kind of cool, and it puts us all on our toes a little bit, but it's really down to about 6 weeks, 4 to 6 weeks of intense time. We have a team of 12 here, so most of our team tends to work a little bit more during that time of year. But yeah, we focus that the personal tax time might be maybe 10% of our overall practice. So we tend to focus on working with people on a monthly basis as well. And with corporate clients, which is the bulk of what we do, we are able to strategically place their year ends so that they're a little bit more outside of the personal tax season, so that our year round is pretty solid.
That's perfect.
That's awesome.
Sorry,
Go ahead, Paul.
I was just going to say, Robert, like you're in a very similar sector to Elaine. So providing, by the sounds of it, accounting, taxation, advisory services to clients and things like that. And you do own GAUVREAU and Associates. So can you tell us, I guess, a bit about your background and what duties you have as a CEO and president of your company?
Yeah, so 10 years ago, I started my own firm. I worked and articled with a national firm that did essentially a lot of audits for bigger companies, nonprofits. And I got a bit of a taste for working with small business and business owners and working with them on a strategic level from an advisory piece, but from a tax planning standpoint and, providing their accounting and reporting services. So we really like focusing on working with business owners and entrepreneurs. So that's kind of been our specialization for the last 10 years. One of the cool things that's happened with us in the last couple years is that the Tony Robbins Group actually recruited us, and we represent the Tony Robbins Business Mastery Group for Canada right now, which is kind of cool. So it's a lot of just providing massive value to clients and having them become raving fans of ours and continue to work with them to build and grow and succeed in their business.
So you get to wear that headset all the time and yell at your clients? Come on, let's get these taxes done!
Yeah, no, I leave that to Tony. Yeah. Although that would be very entertaining.
How did you get hooked up with that? Like, what was the foundation behind that relationship and that partnership?
Yeah, we work with an accounting consulting group called Panalytics, and Panalytics is out of Australia. They've just moved to North America, and incredible expertise out of there on how to grow and expand and add value to clients as far as an accounting business goes. And there was a connection. Tony Robbins Group was looking for someone in Canada to go and work with their clients throughout the year. And so now I have the pleasure of going to 3 events with Tony for a week. And yeah, it's been exceptional.
Fantastic, dude. That's great. That's very excited.
That's a big deal.
Yeah.
So let's dive right into business here, shall we? So what I know for sure is that over 70% of business owners out there, when they start off, they leverage their personal finances for their business, and then it becomes like a recording nightmare and even tax implications. Can you help some of our brothers and sisters in the startup world? Just how do they set up properly right from the get-go so that way none of the disaster happens?
Well, one of the first things I would do with when I've done mentoring at startup Ottawa events, I usually meet with the small business owners and ask them where they are on their journey. Are they right at the beginning, and have they started any bookkeeping or accounting, any record keeping yet? And I quite often hear, oh, well, we haven't had any income, or we haven't really had any expenses. And one of the things that right away, I can look at the fact that they've just handed me a business card and say, well, who paid for this?
Mm-hmm.
And then they say, oh, well, I paid for it out of my own pocket. So I explain to them that right away they've got, a shareholder loan entry and an expense entry, and they have to start right from the beginning to be tracking, because there's 2 ways for a business owner, a new entrepreneur, to put money into the company, and that's to go and, take $5,000 out of their own personal bank account and deposit it into a business bank account. But it's much more likely that they will be meeting small expenses related to their business, themselves personally. So I teach them that we need to track that right from the start, and then as soon as possible, as soon as they've got income, revenue, I train them to stop using personal money for business.
One thing that we like to do, very similar, I like establishing the separate bank accounts right off the bat. For me, that is so key. Especially we do some bookkeeping for clients, and if we're able to get online access to them, we can actually report everything behind the scenes for them and give them an idea of where they're at. But for me, with a new business, what I like to see from a cash flow planning standpoint is the owners of the business establish what it is that they need personally to live and survive and enjoy their life the way that they need to. And they get to look at the business and say, can the business support this? And if it can, let's make a weekly transfer from the business account to a personal account and nothing more. Keep it consistent for cash flow basis so that the individual can live, but that they're not depleting all the cash resources out of the business. So I think it's so very key to have those 2 completely separated. So, no, go ahead.
What about in a situation where there's multiple owners, like you just said right now, you talk to the owners, how should someone set up and to protect each other? Because I've had a couple of fallouts, with one business in particular, right?
That never happens.
I actually didn't know what to do. I don't know what I could have done to avoid some of the financial, trauma and arguments that we all end up going through. So any thoughts?
Yeah, for me, we see it somewhat frequently, right? You get into a partnership situation where maybe people think they know people until money gets involved. So the one key thing that I like to do, and it's maybe giving some work to the lawyers, is to make sure that you have a shareholder agreement laid out that establishes who puts money in, who's entitled to take money out, and at what rate. So that would be one. And two, I wouldn't put money in unless everyone's committing to putting money in at the same time, and without a commitment to taking money back out until the business is successful. It's very hard, as you've explained from some experience. A lot of emotions get involved when finances come into play. So establishing the rules and the ground rules for working together up front would certainly be a huge asset.
So does that mean, what if it's not a corporation?
Yeah,
either make a difference.
Either way, so if it's not a shareholder agreement, it's a partner agreement. I just think outlining, what that relationship looks like and the legal obligation that you have to each other and to the business, I think is a really strong stepping point to understanding how your success is going to be together. I just had a partnership that was in not too long ago, and they were looking at how they establish their compensation strategy within each other. And it was interesting, as an opening conversation, they weren't on the same page at all until finally, when we left the meeting, everyone felt good about it. But my one general rule of thumb is, if either one of the partners has any sort of feel like they're not being treated fairly in this, it's not going to work. So everyone has to be happy with how that arrangement is laid out.
The thing about that is, when you've got a couple of people involved, whether it's an official partnership or there's just more people putting money into the company, the record keeping, to be exact, is really important to really track who met what expense at the start, because maybe they haven't opened up their business account that we're going to recommend to them now, but you need to trace if they've each put in a couple of $1,000s and one person takes some out, you need to track that so that you've got their liabilities to each partner very clear, and I would have separate accounts for them. The other things that I find often is that new businesses are quite often financed from the bank of mom and dad, and it is, and so it's often family members that have contributed to new businesses. So we set that up as a separate liability account as well, so that we know when the business is in a position to pay back those particular loans.
Yeah, we had something similar to that too. We started with 4 partners, and kind of everyone put in different amounts of money, and then people were drawing different amounts monthly, and it just became like we had it tracked all from the beginning, luckily. But I can imagine if that didn't happen, and you're like, wow, let's just figure it out as we go, and everyone dump money in. Let's all start taking money, and you figure it out a year later, it can cause a lot of headaches. I guess my question is, what would you say then are the must-know things that entrepreneurs need to understand about business finance, like when they're first getting into it? Would it be structuring, or is there other things that you would say would be must-knows?
Yeah, for me, structure is good, but I think the one thing that is the most relevant for me is understanding what your cash flow looks like. I feel like a lot of small businesses fail because they don't have an expectation of what that cash flow looks like, whether it's in or out. Understanding what is needed from a financial standpoint to have the business succeed. So for me, I love to have small business owners go through that whole business planning process to outline a cash flow forecast, and to keep track of it and make sure that they're on track. And I know we're probably going to talk about it down the road here, but it's so important for business owners to start to accumulate some surplus cash so they have a bit of a reserve should anything come and that's a little bit rocky along the way.
Very cool. Sorry, go ahead, Elaine.
From my point of view, some of the first things that a business owner needs to know about business finances is unless they're starting up an accounting or bookkeeping firm, they're probably not an expert in them themselves. And it's not just adding, it's not just math. You know, there's actual accounting rules that you have to follow, and you know, you shouldn't just assume that you can do it yourself. Get accounting advice right from the start, even if it's just to help someone set you up. But you should be able to understand at least the two main financial statements: your income statement, how much you made and how much you spent, and whether you've got any left over, and your balance sheet, how much you own and how much you owe, and whether you're in the black or the red there. So like I always start with explaining to a business owner what those two financial statements are and how each of their transactions affects that. Like, it could be that they're paying back a loan, and sometimes I see a business owner trying to post that as an expense, but I should have to show them that it's, you know, it's actually reducing their liability instead. So it's on the balance sheet and it doesn't ever go onto the income statement. So really know enough to know that you're not an expert in this, and get help, and then like understanding the financial statements and the transactions and how they affect them.
That's like anything in business, but more so when it comes to finances, right? Because I mean, like anything, you want to basically focus on the things that you are an expert in, and then kind of offset the things that you're not great at with other professionals. And this is a perfect example, and probably the most important example of that, right, in business.
Yeah, because you can get into a lot of trouble. You know, I see business owners, especially now with e-commerce and online websites and shipping to other provinces and things like that. I see business owners that don't know what tax they should be charging. Should they be charging the tax for Ontario? I see them charging taxes for provinces that they're not registered in. You know, like, just get that advice at the start, and then we can keep you out of trouble.
So I was on that note, in terms of, beyond a city, different provinces, global business, what are some of the international, whether it be tax or finance related policies a startup should really consider if they're doing business globally?
Consider surrounding yourself with a team of good advisors. For me, we have a bunch of clients that do have global business, a lot that maybe have activity in the United States because of the proximity to our closest partner. But I know enough about U.S. tax law to keep me out of trouble, right? And I know when I need to call in an expert that has the U.S. tax knowledge. I think surrounding yourself with people who can, like it was mentioned, keep you out of trouble in that circumstance is very important. And working with someone who has a large network of advisors around them, that, whether it's other CPA firms or whether it's specialists, whether it's in Canada or whether it's global, certainly having that team of solid advisors is a very positive thing.
Like, I'm going to add Bob to my network of solid advisors now. So.
Yeah, there we go.
So I totally agree. The network, and knowing when you don't know, when you've reached the limit of your expertise, and having someone else to go to, that's very important, because especially in the bookkeeping industry, it's so far unregulated, and it's not an offense to call yourself an accountant out there either. So if you're not actually a CPA, but I think a good sign of a professional is actually knowing when to say, I can take you this far, and then I know somebody else to go to. But there's lots of people who just say, oh yeah, I know it all, I can do it all, and that's because they work by themselves and they don't network with other accountants. So.
We get asked a lot of tax questions ourselves, because we deal with a lot of investors, a lot of commercial financing as well. So there's a lot of questions of people asking, well, what are the tax implications of this? How should we structure this, and that sort of thing. So we know kind of your foundational information that we can kind of have a discussion. But like you said, we have expert accountants that we can easily refer people off to and say, listen, we can get you this far, but this is when you need to start talking to XYZ, right? Yeah. So when should startups think about getting an accountant? To what degree should they be working together?
Go ahead, Elaine. I know you touched on this earlier.
I know, yes, because I just think right from the start, I used to go in and train business owners on just how to use QuickBooks. They would ask me how to use QuickBooks. I'd spend a morning or an afternoon, and show them how to use QuickBooks. And from there, they would think that they could do it themselves. And I just saw too often that they were coming back to me in 6 months, having made a mess of their books with an error that if I'd seen it even the next day, I would have been able to say, oh no, that deposit that went into your bank, that's not sales, that's a payment. So you're doubling up on sales when you record that deposit as sales. So I really recommend that you get someone from the very start to explain a little bit about accounting and government regulations and what your obligations to the government will be as far as taxes go, to set up your chart of accounts and everything for you as well. But one of the things that I like to do is just to at least spend 3 months with the business owner. Instead of just training them and sending them out, I like to spend at least 3 months with them, sort of coaching them through doing their own regular transactions and things like that, and up to filing their first HST return. But you can't get there fast enough as soon as you decide that you want to make any income that is off T4 income. If you're earning your own, you need to speak to a bookkeeper or an accountant right away.
Fantastic. So what about, let's take the long term now. So there's so many startup companies that, let's say, have this world transformative product, and they plan to bring on investors, do pitches, raise money, dilute their company somewhat in earnings. Is there anything accounting related or that they should set up if they're planning on this in the future that they should be aware of right now?
Yeah, I know we've worked with a lot of startups who've gone through, different financing strategies, whether it's issuing new share capital to potential investors, whether it's going through venture capital, or whether it's raising their own bank financing. Depending on the method and the opportunity that's there from an investment standpoint, I think it's different for every situation. What I do know is that there are funds out there for startups, through a community futures foundation, through an angel network. I know we work with the angel network locally, that if you go in and do a presentation and you can have people buy in and believe in what it is that your business is and what your vision is, that there are funds out there that are able to assist. And I know BDC Canada has some small business funding that's out of right now as well, that's available to new businesses to a certain extent, because it's so hard to get financing when you don't have a tangible item to attach it to. So looking at cash flow and operating working capital, those are kind of the ways that I would look at obtaining the financing. But I think from a structural standpoint, it's all very specific, and that's when you certainly need an accountant and a lawyer involved.
Yeah, Fundica is also a great resource. Fundica and Lenmart now is kind of an offshoot of Fundica. TUAN actually interviewed one of the employees from Lenmart recently, and it was a great discussion talking about that specifically.
The other thing I would say is that if you're, well, really to echo what Bob said, if you're going for financing before you have a product or a service, like if you're going right at the very start of your business, before you're up and running, you have to have a solid business plan and cash flow projections. Like you have to prove where you got your numbers from. But if you're going for financing for growth of your business, so after you've started and after you've got your some transactions under your belt, they're going to want to see your income statement and your balance sheet. They're going to want to see, so that's another good reason to keep your accounting up to date and not just wait until tax time. Because I have clients that have gone to BDC and the BDC is immediately impressed that they've got the financial statements together.
Yeah.
So have you seen any of your clients tell you, I'm about to raise some funds, whether what channel they choose to, then you look at their financial statements and you see, oh my goodness, you're making some kind of rudimentary mistakes here before asking for the money. Any type of mistakes we should be aware of, before we seek some kind of financing?
It's a good question. It's tough to get specific on it, but I know, if, like was just said, if your finances aren't up to date, or there's errors in them, or if the formatting looks terrible, to me, and this is a selfish sort of accountant perspective, but for me, the financial statements are a presentation of what it is that you're looking for investors to invest in. So if they don't look clean, if the profitability doesn't look good, if there's large amounts of debt, if you can't afford to repay your loans that are existing, these are all different parts of the business that aren't really selling what it is that you're doing very well, because it doesn't show that you've managed your finances very well. And I feel like a lot of investors are looking for people who are set up for success in the future, just need the capital in order to do so. So I think having everything up to date and nice and clean would certainly be the first step I would take.
So this may be a bit of a redundant question, but I'm still going to ask it anyways, because I know I've been hearing a lot of people talking about actually having accountants on staff, like hiring them as part of their team. So, what are some things that business owners may otherwise overlook when they're making that decision? Like, what is some advice you would give to people that are thinking about or kind of on the fence about actually hiring an accountant on staff?
For me, it's actually, when we started working with the Tony Robbins group, we started to look at this void that I felt was in the market, was that, these small businesses don't have access to that expertise. A lot of accounting firms focus on doing year-end work and filing financial statements and tax returns, but not really giving the advice, which most accountants have with the experience, sharing that knowledge with the clients throughout the year. So one thing that we've started doing is offering like a virtual CFO coaching mentorship program that some of our clients, instead of spending $100,000 getting a CFO on staff, there are contract CFO people who are out there that have the advice and expertise, and you can get it at a more affordable rate, because going from not having a CFO to having a full-time one, you might not have enough work for them, but certainly along the way there might be an opportunity to get a contract CFO that really has that financing, reporting, advice, and expertise to help the business succeed.
One of the things I would say with all the advancements in technology in accounting and bookkeeping now, with QuickBooks Online and all the apps that feed into that ecosystem, that like expense tracking apps like HubDoc and that go and fetch your bills for you and feed it right into QuickBooks, there's been such a reduction in data entry that a lot of it's all automated now, and it gives people like me time to actually sit back and review the financial statements. It gives you the answers in much more real time, and you can collaborate with your business owners, and you can keep track of, when you see that they need advice, you can get to them much more quickly. So with all of that, I agree with Bob. There's enough experience and like use of technology and advice that can be had in just a contract service before you feel like you have to commit to someone that's a big hit to your cash flow to take on a CFO.
So curious, QuickBooks has been obviously around for a long time. If you've gone online and stuff, there are a lot of new accounting software options that's coming to the market the last 5 years. Do you have any favorites that you like to highlight? I won't ask which ones, unless you really want to advise someone not take something, right? But how about starting with any favorite that you have that are useful for both your side as well as the client side?
Yeah, certainly for us, we love working with QuickBooks, and I know they are a sponsor, so it's a good fit. But having our knowledge of QuickBooks is putting in 75% of their resources to developing QuickBooks Online right now, which I think is an incredible product. And it gives, and it's tying back into the financial, having access to that financial information. QuickBooks Online does have a really strong dashboard, which gives you, decent at the tip of your fingertips access to financial reports, like what were your expenses the last 30 days, how much cash is in your bank account on a live basis. So there's certainly the technology advancement going to real time. QuickBooks, for us, is our favorite, and as far as I'm aware, it's the largest in the world. So we tend to exclusively work with them.
Although I work with other online accounting packages as well, really, the majority of my work is in QuickBooks Online. We still have a couple of clients who are on the QuickBooks desktop, but that means going to the client and doing the work at theirs with their, and it's really not my preferred way to work anymore. The QuickBooks Online, as Bob said, the dashboard, as long as everything's up to date, then when you log on and you see that dashboard there, then there's no excuse for a business owner to say, oh, I didn't know that we weren't making that much money. It's right there the first thing when you log on. So I find I'm really excited about the technology, and I always say there's never been such a sexy time to be in accounting, because developers they're just throwing all their effort and their money at us, and they're always wanting us to be beta testers for new things, and we just jump on them right away. So.
I mean, in any business, especially a startup, you should be in the numbers, right? Like, as a business owner, you should know exactly where your finances stand day to day, what's coming in, what the pipeline looks like. I mean, those are all really important behaviors. So I think having that sort of tool now that you guys can tap into and share with your clients is super powerful, right? And like you said, there's never been a time like that where you can have everything really transparent for both sides.
Yeah, sorry, Bob. One of the things I was just going to say, one of the things that I find is that even though we've got QuickBooks Online and the business owners in there, and I'm in there too, they're not logging on to QuickBooks Online often enough. We have to take their attention away from, they look at Shopify, and they look at, as if they're doing e-commerce, or they have even a point of sale system if they're a retail store, and they have the point of sale system, and they think their numbers are just in their sales. So I have to keep bringing their attention back to QuickBooks Online, saying, you know what, Shopify and the Smart Vendor and all the point of sales that you got, your expenses aren't in there. So let's go back and look at, the bottom line here.
And Elaine, I think that's such a key message that you just said. And I think one of the benefits of having the real-time data and having the accountants and the bookkeepers externally having access to it is we can go in at any point and see where things are at. Whether the entrepreneur is asking us to assist, or whether we just want to go in and see how up to date they are. I think that is a major benefit, because for those clients that normally have it not on a cloud-based system, we don't really know where they're at until the end of the year, when they come in and tell us, you need to do 12 months of stuff because we haven't done anything, right? And I think that real-time value is certainly there for the accountants to be an advisor. More of a trusted advisor than actually just doing the filing at the end of the year.
I think the way it empowers the entrepreneurs as well, though, because, like I say, we did mention how many decades I've been doing this for, and you used to go in and they would either bring their paperwork to you once a month or once a quarter, or tragically once a year. But there was just this, you went away and you did your magic, and they didn't even try to understand or think that it was part of their business. You just went away and did whatever you do with all their paperwork and produced financial statements. Now you can really empower the business owners to understand, and you're training them with the collaboration that you have with QuickBooks Online and online cloud accounting like that. So I'm much more of a coach for business now than I am a data entry person.
I just picture all the business owners in the 40s with their abacus and typewriters, just working through their numbers.
It's not that many decades, Paul.
No, I know, I'm teasing. So would you say, on this topic, I guess, what are some tools, or what are the best ways for entrepreneurs and business owners to manage cash flow? I mean, this is kind of a tool that they can use, but what other resources would you suggest as far as managing cash flow?
That's a good question. I like to, maybe this is the old school part of the accountant that's in me. I think, even with a QuickBooks Online dashboard, for sure, you've got access to really good information. But even in Excel, looking at and just building here's what's coming in, here's what's going out, and making it very simple so that business owners can manage their cash flow. And I think, part of it was kind of mentioned before. There needs to be a certain level of knowledge there with the entrepreneur to understand that loan repayments aren't going to hit your expense. So your income statement or your profit and loss might look really strong, but you're out of money. And we get our business owners, a lot of them that come in every year and say, oh, that looks great, and we owe a lot of tax money, but how come we feel like we're broke? Well, there's a lot of items that go into understanding cash flow that aren't necessarily on a profit and loss. So I think, breaking it down even in a really simple way, looking at how maybe you make a sale and it's on accounts receivable. You know, it's great, you can make a $100,000 sale, but if you haven't collected the money, you're still poor, right? So I think it's something very simple, even in Excel, just looking at the breakdown of what profit and loss versus cash flow looks like is so important.
Yeah, we do the same thing. We actually have we have our deal management system with all of our actual active deals, but then we also have an Excel spreadsheet that shows pretty much the whole pipeline for the year. You know, what's completed, what's been approved, what's been declined, like every single track, and it shows, you know, closing date. It basically has the full pipeline, you know, real dollar for dollar, so we can keep track of that and know exactly where we stand at all times, which is powerful for us because it gives you kind of that confidence, and you're not as worried, right? There's a lot of things that you kind of subconsciously worry about as an entrepreneur. And this kind of, as I said, when you're in the numbers, you don't stress as much about that because you know exactly where everything stands on a day-to-day basis, which is nice.
Yeah, and that's one thing that when we talk with our clients, especially some that maybe we do more at the business advisory piece with them, is saying, okay, you want a powerful financial metric. So we know where you are right now by looking at, you know, your past income statement, your cash, your balance sheet. But let's get a real true understanding of where it is you want to go. And then if you can outline it, like you mentioned, in a cash flow projection of what results you need along the way to realize your vision, your future financial success. And to be able to outline that and realize that from a month-to-month basis and see if you're on track, I feel like that is the most powerful financial tool that you can have access to.
That's awesome. I love it. On the note of financial statements, you know, at the year-end audits, when, you know, I submit my books to my accountant, you know, my accountant says, "Oh man, you know, I got to do like all these adjusting entries because you recorded too much here, too little there. This was an ambiguous account I created." Can you give some advice to business owners who are like, you know, trying to do their best in terms of measuring, recording, and representing the way they spend their cash, but somehow all of us business owners ends up making the same mistakes of creating maybe incorrect, accounts and stuff like that, right? Any thoughts on that?
That's where we get back to part of the training with an entrepreneur is telling them what not to touch. So setting up new accounts, I would prefer that my clients come back to me and ask me before they do something like that to set up a new account. I'm in charge of the chart of accounts because there can be a lot of ambiguity and duplication, or, you know, I've seen them set up as an expense when it should have been a liability. You know, so that's something that I think is best left to the professionals or done in conjunction with the professionals.
For me, when I look at my year-end clients' financial statements, I would rather see a large number, and I know QuickBooks does this automatically, creates an Ask My Accountant account. And I would much rather be looking through an Ask My Accountant and doing an allocation out of there than clients putting things in the wrong account throughout the year. So one thing that I like to give advice to is, if you're going to do it wrong, do it all wrong in the same spot, so that we can easily go through and we don't have to recreate everything. So certainly putting it all in one spot of anything you're unsure of is a very positive from an external accountant standpoint.
That's awesome. I didn't know that existed, but that's a
great
great
advice.
Yeah.
It does. Now you've just told everybody, Bob, and everybody's going to put everything in Ask My Accountant from now on.
You're going to get daily updates now.
Yeah. How come everything's in Ask My Accountant? Come on.
Thanks, Bob.
So in terms of, sorry, go ahead, Paul.
No, go.
So in terms of point of sales and collecting money, right? There's many ways to collect money, and I've had some friends since I've hosted the show reach out to me, and they said they have like a PayPal account, a Stripe account, and they're accepting money from the U.S., from Europe, and they're asking me if they should set up a U.S. account or not, if they should set up all these different banks accounts even to that point. Any thoughts on that kind of ecosystem of collecting sales through the internet from all over the world, different currencies, and so on and so forth?
For me, you know, I think it depends on how much volume you're doing in a particular region. So we sometimes recommend that our clients get a U.S. account if they do a lot of volume in the U.S. One, to somewhat hedge the fluctuation in the currency, so that if they have at least some money in there, as the currency goes up and down, they're not exposed to, the currency fluctuation risk. So I think it really depends on how much you have as far as transactions in a certain country. I always feel like simple is easier. If you don't need to have multiple accounts set up, don't do it. Unless there's a financial benefit to doing so. And I think part of your question too is from a collection of money standpoint, what's an efficient way to get money into your bank account? And I feel like money transfers have become so popular now that they're a super efficient way to receive money. PayPal, of course. There's also a program that I like to use, and it's called EFT Canada, and it's an automatic direct debit that you can sign your clients up for, so that when you have an invoice, you have a contract that's set up that says, 10 days after an invoice is done, we're going to automatically pull these funds from your bank account. And it's an upfront contract that you sign. That way you're managing your cash flow. You know that 10 days after you're going to get that cash unless they have no money. So I think that, it all for me comes back to how you manage your cash flow for how successful you're going to be as a business. And if you can have control over when that money's going to come in, I think that's a super strong asset.
Yeah, I use a similar EFT.
EFT Canada.
Yeah. I use a similar program called Pluto that you can send money and you can go and get money from your clients' bank accounts in a similar fashion. Yeah, but I would agree with Bob that keep it simple. Have as few bank accounts and as few methods of that money coming in as possible. Because I have clients that they've got sales and money coming in from Eventbrite, they've got it coming in from Stripe, they've got it coming in from Square, and then they've got US bank accounts, and PayPal having US and having a Canadian in there too. That can be quite difficult to track. So the more simple you can keep things, the better.
And more expensive, right? The more accounts that the bookkeepers or the accountants have to reconcile and review, it becomes more time sensitive and a little bit more costly from that side. So again, simple is better.
So one last word, we are nearing the end of the discussion here. So I wanted to actually bring it back to, you guys talked about like preparation when you're starting the business. So how much funding should self-funded entrepreneurs, so if they're starting their money, they're not looking for any funding from outside sources, how much should they have saved up before attempting to actually start their business?
I would have to say everybody's in a very different, it's an individual situation. You can have startup costs that you need to get finance for right away. And if you're fitting out a retail store and you're going to be opening, like I have a couple of clients that are pet stores, there's a lot to be involved in that. So you need a lot of financing at the start, as well as financing to keep yourself going for the next little while, depending on, as Bob said, how much money do you personally need to live. But from my point of view, when I started, I had to go out and buy a laptop, and I had to buy a copy of QuickBooks Desktop, and I started working the next day.
Yeah, and I feel like, a lot of new business, the new modern business, is a very efficient business model. For a new business to go out, you don't even need a computer anymore. You can do almost everything off your smartphone. You can accept money, you can create invoices, you can do billing, you can make phone calls. So, as far as a fixed cost model, I think the new model is very, very streamlined and very simple and efficient. But I feel like Elaine said, each individual business is different. I think you need to have enough money so that you're not going to go into your new venture and be cheap with it, right? You need to make sure that you pay for the right advice, the right setup. You don't want to cheap out on having the appropriate amount of inventory. You don't want to fall short on cash resources in the bank to pay bills. I feel like whatever the business is, you have to have a good understanding of what the costs are, and you have to have sufficient funds available to make sure that you're really ready to go into this 100%.
Yeah, I think that's such a good point, Bob, that make sure you've got the funding to get the expert advice as well. Because if you can't, if you haven't allowed for that, it's going to cost you down the road, guaranteed. It's going to cost you down the road if you haven't sought, good advice at the start of your business. So do make sure you've included that in your funding projections.
That's awesome.
I could definitely echo your thoughts. I decided this time around to get a virtual CFO, like Bob said, and I've been using QuickBooks forever. But going online, to see that transition going online has been a phenomenal, transformation for the business. Staying on top of things and the coaching opportunity, the relationship with an accountant has changed, I think, from the past till in a great way. It's a lot more intimate. And so to the fellow startups out there, it's arguably my best investment is having someone help me manage my cash, and so I could have confidence in investing in certain areas. So thank you.
And focus on your core business, right?
Yeah.
So in closing, we'll pass this over to our experts. So do you guys have any closing remarks, comments, or even stories to share with our listeners before we wrap this up?
I guess my one closing comment would be, when you're starting a business, make sure that you spend the time truly understanding how the business is going to work. What the cycle is, from a sale to how you collect your money. Make sure you outline what those costs look like. Understand that if you need to have capital equipment, understand what that investment piece looks like. Understand what the repayment terms are. Make sure, as a startup, network your butt off. Create yourself this incredible network of people. I know, as being one of the founders of Startup Peterborough, we've created this network of mentorship with maybe some of the senior people in our community that have good advice and have good resources. By knowing more people, you have more exposure to different relationships and different pieces of advice. Add massive value to your customers and create raving fans out of all of them. Those will be the messages from Tony Robbins. Have people bragging about how their experience was with you. And it's being an entrepreneur is a real ride. You need to enjoy it. If you don't 100% enjoy what you're going to sacrifice some of the other parts of your life for, you have to have that passion to really jump into it. And for me, surrounding yourself with incredible people and incredible network and really having the passion to do what it is that you're trying to do every day is the most important thing for me.
Yeah, I would say that just to sum up a lot of what we talked about earlier is just that your accountant or bookkeeper, if we're in public accounting, not private accounting, if we're in public accounting, we're not in it just because we love numbers, we're in it because we love people as well. So we get passionate about your startup. So don't think of us as someone that you're going to come to, a necessary evil that you're going to come to only when you have to. We really want you to succeed, and we can be like a trusted advisor, a partner. I'm privileged to be a partner in all my clients' businesses. And I like to support them, and I like to introduce them to people that will help extend their network as well. And I want to make sure that they succeed. So, there's a lot more to it now than just the numbers.
That's such a key point that you made, Elaine, was seeing your I guess partners as actual partners in the business. Like our accountant, I do see as a partner. Our marketing expert, I see as a partner in our business. Like they really are an intricate part of your team, right? So it's kind of forming that power team around your business that really has a vested interest in your success and wants you to grow and wants to work with you and so on. So that was great answers, guys, and thank you so much to Elaine and Bob for your expertise today, for joining us. And that was a great conversation about balancing personal and business expenses for beginners. For everyone tuning in, be sure to join us next Thursday, May 25th. We're going to be discussing cultivating confidence, so pitching do's and don'ts. And your hosts are going to be Brendan Wazelnick and Janice McDonald, two awesome entrepreneurs as well. And guest experts that day are going to be Heather Abbey and Vinnie Lynch. And if you want to register for that event or learn more about it, you can go to startupcan.ca/events.
Yes, and you could also stay informed for all the latest opportunities, announcements, and entrepreneur events by following Startup Canada on Twitter, liking us on Facebook, and following us on Instagram. A new startup podcast drops every Tuesdays on iTunes, and Startup Canada Live is here on Periscope, Facebook Live, and Everstream every Thursday, 12 to 1 p.m. Eastern. So to our fellow lovely guests, that was a wicked, awesome, highly charismatic conversation.
Yeah,
and thank you to you both so much. And my bro, Paul, thanks for having me beside you, bro.
All right, guys, have an awesome day. Thanks again.
Thank you.
Thank you, guys.
Bye.
Take care.